This is the Michael Koolidge Show. Coolidge.com. It's spelled with a K.
Gary Sinise is an Oscar-nominated and Emmy-winning actor, born and bred in the great state of Illinois. He is the executive producer of a new documentary called Brothers at War, and he, of course, stars on CSI New York, which I understand he is literally filming today out in L.A. Gary Sinise, welcome on to the Michael Koolidge Show.
Thanks for having me, Michael.
Is that where you are today, or were you on the set of CSI New York?
I actually finished shooting about an hour ago.
Wow.
I'm sitting in my office here.
Can you tell us all the plot spoilers of the upcoming season? How exactly does Mac Taylor die? Can you tell us all that?
Why do you think he dies?
I don't know.
No, I'm going to be on for many seasons.
No,
I'm not going anywhere.
We hope not. We hope not. We love CSI New York. Now, we're huge fans of your acting as well as the incredible things you've accomplished outside of acting, your work with the USO, Operation Iraqi Children. Tell our listeners what that is, Operation Iraqi Children.
On my second trip to Iraq back in November of 2003, I was able to go out and visit some of the schools there. And, you know, I was really, that particular year, I was all over the place. I was in Iraq in June, and I was in Italy in July. I was in Germany in August. This is all USO trips going to support the troops. And I was down at Fort Stewart in Georgia and visiting the hospitals in September and back in Iraq in November. So I was just trying to do as much as I could with the time that I had to support the troops and get out there and help them out. And I knew, you know, that I couldn't be making trips all the time, so I wanted to find some way that I could support the troops from home. And on this second trip to Iraq, after visiting these schools, I thought, well, maybe I could start a program that would send school supplies over to the troops, and they could take these supplies out and hand them to the children, because I thought, well, you know, here I am at this school just north of Baghdad, and I'm seeing this tremendous goodwill between the kids and the soldiers who had helped to rebuild this school. And I thought, you know, what can we do to support this goodwill, this hearts and minds effort that is going on here? So I thought maybe we could provide the troops with these supplies that they could take out all around the country and give them to the kids. And since the founding of Operation Iraqi Children in 2004, we've sent between 250,000 and 300,000 school supply kits over to the troops, and these supplies have been distributed by the troops all around the country to kids in various schools around the country. And just tomorrow, as a matter of fact, we have a 25-ton airlift of our supplies going over that American Airlines has donated a plane, and they're taking 25 tons of Operation Iraqi school supplies, Iraqi children's school supplies, over to our troops, and they'll be able to take those supplies out and give them to the kids all around the country.
Wow. That is just so awesome. And that kind of thing I don't think is talked about enough in Iraq. A lot of these great things our troops are doing, a lot of great things charities like Operation Iraqi Children are doing. And, you know, you've been extremely successful in Hollywood for years. And so much of the art that comes out of Hollywood, unfortunately, not only doesn't talk about the good stuff that our troops does, but talks about our troops, particularly in this modern war, sometimes in really extreme ways, like they're rapists and villains, like in that Brian De Palma movie, or they're helpless, troubled victims or whack jobs, like in Stop Loss or in the Valley of Elah. And I know that there are, you know, we have very good friends and fellow veterans who are going through post-traumatic stress disorder, and that stuff is real. But so much of the art in Hollywood, it seems, is just about that. You think about the war or about our military, and it's just the bad stuff. Why did you make Brothers at War? Why did you executive produce this movie? And tell our listeners what that is.
Well, I've been involved with veterans for many years. I have veterans in my family, Vietnam veterans on my wife's side. I have Vietnam veteran friends. I got involved with veterans way back in the early 80s, and it was in the Chicago area that I got involved with local Vietnam veterans groups. And this was not too long after Vietnam, and our Vietnam veterans were really suffering. And, I've talked to quite a few Vietnam veterans who were very, very disappointed with the way they were portrayed in Hollywood movies. You had movies like Coming Home and The Deer Hunter and Apocalypse Now and Platoon and stuff. And if you look at those movies, there's psychos in every one of those films.
Right.
Vietnam veterans are all psychos. Look at Casualties of War, Brian De Palma's movie. That was a movie that was made about 4 guys who go out and rape a little Vietnamese girl, and then he makes his 21st century version of that by making a movie about Iraqi veterans that go out and rape a little Iraqi girl.
Right.
Our Vietnam veterans were disappointed with the way they were portrayed in movies back then. I ended up doing Forrest Gump, and I had a lot of Vietnam veterans come up to me and say, that this was more my story. It was a story of, hardship and pain and loss. But in the end, that particular Vietnam veteran survives it and comes through it and gets his life back together. And that was a story that was never told. Just wasn't told enough in the Vietnam era. And now you have a lot of movies that have been coming out, like you say, that where our troops are, they're pissed off and they're grumpy and they're going through a lot of trouble and everything like that. And that's all very real stuff. That does happen. But you have a lot of service members that keep re-enlisting as well, and serving honorably, and surviving their difficulties and finding ways to get through these long deployments. And Brothers of War is a documentary made about a lot of our service members, and it shows, it shows the difficulties that they're going through over in Iraq and the things that they have to deal with in the long deployments and the difficulties that they struggle with and that their families struggle with here at home. But it also shows the kind of courage and honor and integrity of the American service member that we have out there. And it made me proud when I saw it that we're finally exposed through a documentary to a lot of the people that I see on these various USO tours that I go on. I see a lot of folks that are just doing their jobs, and they're serving, and they're not complaining, and they're not bitching about it.
Right.
And they're just getting to it. They're military people, and a lot of times you'll have service members that are in the service for 3 or 4 years. They do their time, and then they get out of the service and go on. But there are many people in the military who are military people. They're in for 20, 25 years,
and they love it.
And they're in this particular film, you meet Isaac Rademacher, who's a West Point graduate, and clearly Isaac is going to be in the service for 20 to 25 years. And he represents a whole faction of military life that is not often portrayed in films. And this is a documentary, so it's real stuff. And I supported it, and I came on board after it was made because I believed in it, and it needed help to get to an audience, and I jumped on board and said, let me help bring some attention to this film, because I think it's a worthy film, and it's a movie that made me proud of the people that we have serving our country.